This is Mark, a fund manager who has several investments in mind. He just had the idea of contacting his friend Jonathan.
Hi Jonathan, the reason why I'm here is because my fund is thinking of investing in a project that I believe to have huge upside with very little downside. But I have some doubts on the impact the changes in interest rates might have on the investment, and so I wanted to know what you think.
Okay, great. Now, why don't we first revise some macroeconomic theory? Let's start with a relationship between investment and interest rates. Think of investment as a function of real interest rate.
Let's use a few of Mark's possible investments as an example to better understand this. So, here are Mark's possible investments. The decision to invest is based on the interest rate and the expected rate of return of the three projects. This table shows the expected return and the funding required for these projects. And to the right, we have the interest rates listed. Now we will compute how much investment will be made at each interest rate. At each interest rate, which projects should Mark invest in? At an interest rate of 2%, Mark should invest in the three projects because the expected return is higher than the interest rate. The total money invested will then be 1.2 million. At 6%, Mark should invest in project A and B because the interest rate is higher than the expected return for project C. And the money invested will be equal to 700,000. Now at 10%, Mark should only invest in project A and the money invested will be 300,000. If we plot the points on the graph, we notice that at low interest rate, investment will be high and vice versa. This shows us that interest rates and investment have an inverse relationship. Now, what is the relationship between interest rates and investment in a more macroeconomic perspective? Here, a graph that shows the relationship between interest rates and output. To remind us, output in the IS relation is defined as the following function. Let's break down the investment component a little bit more. As we can see, investment depends on production and negatively on the interest rate. This means that a decrease in the interest rate would cause an increase in investment and an increase in output. Now, how do we measure what impact this decrease in interest rate has on the output of the whole economy? This is explained by the concept of the multiplier effect, which is a Keynesian theory. The multiplier is defined by the following formula, where C1 is the marginal propensity to consume, and the marginal propensity to consume is the proportion of aggregate raise in pay that a consumer spends on the consumption of goods and services as opposed to saving it. What we do to check the impact that it has on the economy as a whole is that we multiply the change in investment, which is due to a decrease in interest rate, by the multiplier in order to get this impact.
But Jonathan, how are interest rates affected then?
Well, this brings us to the ISLM model.
The ISLM is a model that shows how the market for economic goods, IS, interacts with the money market, LM. LM is defined by the following function, where money demand equals money supply. The ISLM model is represented as a graph in which the IS and LM curve intersect to show the short-run equilibrium between interest rates and output. Central banks often make announcements about how monetary policy will affect interest rates. They do it by conducting what is called open market operations, in which the central bank either buys or sells bonds in order to change the money supply in the market, and therefore changing interest rates. Let's say, for example, that governments want to decrease interest rates to stimulate the economy. Central banks pursue something that is called expansionary monetary policy, which is when the central bank buys bonds in order to increase the money supply. which will in turn increase output in the economy and therefore increase investment.
Oh, okay. I perfectly understood now that interest rates and investment have an inverse relationship, that the ISLM model find the equilibrium in the goods and money market, and that interest rates are affected by open market operations pursued by the central bank in a country. Thank you so much, Jonathan. It was really helpful.